Hello and welcome to Indie Comic Ninja, episode 10, an interview with Benjamin Dupey. I am Dexter Jacobs, your host, and this month we are talking to actually another host of a comic podcast. He is the creator, the co-creator of the podcast Nerd Church Radio. If you head over to iTunes, you can catch or subscribe to Nerd Church Radio there. It's a stream, I guess, that has two different shows. So if you listen on or download it on Saturdays, you'll get a DC show where they do a review and spoiler podcast about the DC books that came out that week. They cover about 10, it seems like, or not 10, about 8. So there's 4 guys. And they each cover about 2 books a week, and then the rest of the comics that came out that week, they'll usually do at least a written review of. It's actually Ben's wife that does a lot of their reviews, so Ariel is a very busy lady reading comics and writing reviews on their website. So head over to nerdchurchradio.com. You can at least catch the written reviews, but then head over to iTunes to catch the podcasts. And really, the podcast, the more important show, I said they had 2. They have one that comes out on Tuesday, and I really should be saying we have one that comes out on Tuesday. I have been invited. We've done 2 episodes that I've been a part of. I think that they've done 3 total. We'll be recording one tomorrow. That is also coming out on Tuesday. So it's a show called Nerd Church Radio Indie Tuesdays, and it's me, Andrew Southern, Mondo, I don't know your last name, Mondo, I just call you Mondo, and Ben Dupey, and we're just talking about Image comic books. So today, the fresh new episode is about 7 to Eternity, and then the other book that we're covering this week is Romulus. Benjamin Dupey is on this episode, so stick around. You can hear more about why he got into podcasting and comics in general, and where he's planning on heading with this stuff. He has some big ambitions, and it's fun and nice that I get to be along for the ride, and a chance to be able to talk about comics and review them with like-minded folks who just get into them as much as I do. So without further ado, here is episode 10 with Benjamin Dupey. With Ben Dupey, you started the podcast, and I'm blanking on it, and Nerd Church Radio.
Oh man,
I just call it NCR, so kind of like NPR, I guess.
That's kind of what we wish people would do.
Oh, there you go. So I guess the main question to really start off is, no, that's not even it. So maybe a good place to start is what got you into comics to begin with, because it's been a fairly recent thing for you, right?
Fairly, yeah. So my wife actually was into comics, and we got married, and she had always talked about being into comics, and like all the people who are into comics now, I kind of got into them through the superhero movies.
Yeah.
But and those are cool, I guess, but that kind of got old after a while. So like I started with just ordering a couple books on Amazon. I ordered like a Batman graphic novel, just The Killing Joke, which was one of the first books I ever read.
It's a good start, yeah.
Yeah, Alan Moore was just an amazing writer. And I ordered Batgirl, and I think I ordered a Deadpool comic as well.
Which Batgirl did you start on?
It's the Gail Simone run, actually. Yeah, it's right there. It's the New 52 Gail Simone run.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
that's the one that I started reading Batgirl into. It was a good run.
She's a fantastic writer. To this day, Batgirl is my favorite character still. And that was actually the reason is that was the first comic that arrived. They all ship separately, and the first one that arrived was Batgirl. So that was like the first comic I ever read was a Batgirl comic. So
like literally, that's the first comic you read. You didn't read them as a kid?
Nope, not really.
Oh, wow.
My brother was into like Spawn comics and
Okay.
stuff, and
Yeah.
I suppose I probably flipped through them here and there, but I was more of like a Power Rangers kid. I watched TV and played video games and stuff like
Okay.
that. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, and in the 90s, I mean, because you and I are, I think you're like 2 years younger than me. But in the 90s, it was kind of harder to get, like, especially as a kid, I feel like to get a good solid run of a comic.
yeah.
Because like you just kind of got, at least for me, I would just get like random issues here and there, and I'd have no idea what's going on.
Hmm.
I think I got lucky once. Walmart, for a little while was selling them like packaged. So I
I've heard
got,
about this.
yeah,
Yeah.
like like they're the single issues, but they're in like this like harder plastic bundle.
Hmm.
And I got the Spider-Man Clone Saga that way, or at least
Oh
like
wow. Cool.
the last like probably what would be the trade paperback, like the last volume of the Clone series. So like it's what I think it'd probably be the last one. I don't know. It's when his clone, can't think of his name, Ben, yeah, dies.
Oh, I
And
don't know anything
yeah.
about this.
Oh
Yeah, I'm
well, whatever.
not a Marvel guy, so
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
little bit of a Marvel guy, not a lot, but yeah.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, I heard about the Walmart selling comics thing.
yeah.
That's wild, man.
Well,
That's crazy. Grocery stores used to sell them too and stuff. Like,
yeah, and like the only weird place I think you can still get them is like Barnes and Noble, which really isn't that weird.
yeah, I tried that a little while ago, and they're spotty, but they're kind of fun to flip through and stuff, or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So, okay, so you didn't grow up reading comics. You grew up on Power Rangers, which was like my secret shame of a show to watch. I didn't tell
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah,
Um,
I know. They're great though. They're awesome. I loved them. I told everyone, man.
yeah.
I was a Green Ranger for Halloween.
Oh, nice. I think the reason I was talking to my wife about this actually, like, because she had the same thing where she kind of like watched it a little bit but never told anybody, and I think the reason why is because, like I said, you're 2 years younger than me, and so in
Hmm.
elementary school that's a big age difference, and
Yeah.
so for me it was just like, oh, I'm in what, fifth grade, I'm like, oh, the fourth graders or third graders watch Power Rangers, and so it's kind of why I
Don't
never did.
don't want them thinking like I'm not one of the cool kids or yeah.
No,
And
no.
now it's like cool to be into Power Rangers. Like
Yeah, which is all right, I guess.
yeah, it it's almost as if the people who are our age are making the movies now.
Almost.
Yeah, no, it's like it's just funny. You see all this stuff coming back in TV and movies and stuff, and it's like, people from our generation are like starting to be the people who are making films and stuff, and that's
Yeah. Well, and I mean the comics too, because I was listening to the Images podcast, the interview with the guy, I don't remember his name, who wrote uh, Violent Love.
yeah, yep.
And he's
I forget his name, but yeah.
but he's 31 or 2, I think. So no,
Oh, okay.
he was born in 87, I think he said. So he's like your
Oh,
age.
so he's 29 then.
Which
Yeah,
is a
28,
little
20,
a
something
little
like that.
depressing to think about how like he has an awesome job, and
Right. Well, yeah, you
I
never
mean,
know with being a comic book writer how awesome it actually is, though.
that's a
I mean,
good point, I suppose. But
yeah,
it's just kind of it's funny to see like the people who our age seeing what they're doing, and like I mean, so writing comics and making movies and stuff, and we're just doing a podcast talking about their stuff.
hey man, that's awesome. I'm happy to do it though.
Yeah, yeah,
Shoot, we're contributing in some way. That's like kind of like the thing that got me off on starting Nerd Church Radio was like or NCR I should say, I guess if I want people to
whatever.
start whatever, yeah. Well,
Oh
what got
yeah,
me off on it though was like, you walk into a comic book store, like when I got into comics, I walked into a comic book store and I'm just as confused as heck, I'm like I don't know what stories to pick up. There's so much continuity and so many storylines, and it's almost enough to like make you want to turn around and walk out of the store.
yeah,
And even as you're like getting into them and starting to read them, it's like there's other storylines that interact with your storylines, and the general person doesn't have time to read all of them. So it's like, why not create some type of content that, if someone wants to just read Batman and Superman, they can listen to something and still stay up on what's going on with all the other storylines, see if
mm.
anything's like pertinent or happening, with all those. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and I think the thing that really I enjoy about NCR specifically too. So I guess to be really specific, I guess, and Nerd Church Radio, it started off as a DC only review podcast,
Yep.
correct? And then now you you started the Indie Tuesday, where we, because I'm a co-host on there,
Yep.
we review Image Comics.
Yeah.
So yeah, the thing that really I think that I enjoyed though, getting to know you and getting to know NCR was the DC podcast, because with the whole new Rebirth thing,
Mhm.
and kind of sort of, I wouldn't say I got burned, but I got burned out maybe on like the new 52.
Yeah.
And like you said, like all the different crossovers and huge plot lines that are just crossing over everything. I got really tired of buying all these books that had story, that kind of maybe pertained to the story that I cared about. And so I really appreciate Nerd Church Radio, and I listen every week to the one that I'm not even in, because like I want to keep up on DC, or at least I want to, get my feet wet and see if I can understand it to the point where I want to be reading it again.
Yeah.
So then that way I don't have to be spending 30-40 bucks on comics each month
Yeah, and
when
that's the problem, is that's what we were doing at the beginning before the whole like we figured out that like comic book companies want to like help you promote their stuff, and like they're
yeah,
actually totally cool about that, and like
which is
it's
awesome.
not, it's not that hard. Yeah, and it's really kind of cool. It's kind of funny though in a way, because it's like in a way we're promoting their stuff, but in another way it's like we're telling people everything that happened in the comics. So it's like you don't really need to buy these because we're describing them all to you and spoiling them all for you. But I suppose that like it raises awareness or whatever, and like,
Yeah,
DC and Image are both totally cool about that. I think Marvel is too, and that's a door that we just haven't got enough hands on deck to open yet, but someday we will. So yeah, we're
right.
getting there. Yeah,
Well,
so
and you still have, I mean, half of a comic book is the art, arguably. And
oh
so
yeah.
you can't do that in a podcast. So people are still going to go out and at least look at them. And I know we reviewed Reborn a couple weeks ago, and I still went out and bought it because I wanted it for the art kind of thing. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
was it
Absolutely.
was it Reborn? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Reborn. Yep.
Too many titles. It's hard to
Yeah,
remember
I
them.
know, man. I have trouble with them too. So
But I know, like with me, the reason I got into indie in general is just because, like I said, getting kind of burnt out. Even with Marvel, the crossover stories are just insane sometimes, and just lasting forever. And then trying to remember how many different Spider-Men there are, uh, and kind of ending up not really caring and just really liking Spider-Gwen and stuff like that.
yeah, for sure. It
um,
gets old, man, all that continuity and stuff. And that's why it's really fun to like take a break from that
yeah,
and do the Indie Tuesdays podcast, because that's one where it's like, okay, I'm picking up like a story. It doesn't exist within an expanded universe, and it's like its own thing, and that's kind of fun. I enjoy that a lot. So
yeah. I guess getting back on track.
off the rails.
Yeah, that's all right. So the reason you got into comics was because of your wife.
hmm
And you bought a Batman, a Batgirl, and another one,
Dead
Deadpool.
Deadpool. Yep.
So, what was the first Deadpool that you got?
That was Marvel Now Deadpool #1, and
Oh, okay.
to this day, I still really enjoy Deadpool as a character for what he is. I mean, he's like Harley Quinn. He's a Hot
Hmm.
Topic character that's like just very shallow, like fart jokes and so, it's like
Yeah.
and killing people. It's like the character that people like the kids read just to piss their parents off. And
Yeah.
like, it's like, the mom's like, oh my God, he's shooting people and cussing, and the kid's like, right, it's awesome. Like, it's just, and that's okay for what it is.
Hmm.
Like that. I don't read Deadpool for any amount of like depth, or like I read that just to kind of have fun with it, and
Yeah.
just a light, fun read to laugh at.
Well, I think that's the point of Deadpool. I mean, you can't take that character too seriously, but then at the same time, it's such a versatile character that, like, the series that got me into comics was Remender's X Force, um, and in that, Deadpool's a very serious character and used very well, as almost even the moral compass of the team, which is really funny.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like there's a scene where when they find it's the Dark Angel saga, and they find Apocalypse, and he's been, I don't know if they cloned him or if he just was growing up from a child at least, if not a baby. And so they find him when he's like, I don't know, a 9-year-old boy maybe.
Right.
And all like they all just kind of like want to kill him, and Deadpool's the one that's like, whoa, 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 this is a kid.
Huh.
And
That's cool.
and I don't know how much I want to spoil that story, but he's like the one that kind of was trying to like, hey guys, we need to think about this.
Right.
And then like later on when Genesis, which is who is an Apocalypse clone, he's like a teenager and kind of having, struggling with being a teenager just in general, but then also being the clone of Apocalypse.
Right.
And Deadpool like sneaks into his room, like in the dormitory at the X Mansion, sneaks into his room and gives him like a really like positive, good, like father son kind of talk.
Huh.
But then right before he leaves, he just like is like, oh, and here's some Playboys, and then like climbs back out the window.
Gotta
So
have that if it's Deadpool.
yeah, at least like he kind of redeems that Deadpool quality, I guess. But like, and I think I always like those weird aspects of the characters. Like that's my favorite aspect of Deadpool is the fact that he is kind of like this. He can be that father figure, I guess, and that's kind of what I like about Wolverine too, and why, like, right with and when I got into comics, that's when Wolverine and the X-Men came out, where he kind of took over for Professor X and started leading the school, and I really enjoyed that series too. That was Jason Aaron, who's just a fantastic writer, anyway.
Oh yeah, he's great, man. I'm reading a couple books by him right now. Star
Yeah.
Wars, Marvel
Oh yeah,
Star
yeah.
Wars, and
I was
yeah, Marvel
excited. I was a
Doctor
little.
Strange.
Oh yeah, I heard that the Doctor Strange run is really good.
It is. It's one out of three Marvel titles that I'm reading right now.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah.
Anyway, back to the year story. Uh, so yeah. When was that you like got into comics then?
I want to say it was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, not very long. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been reading like crazy since I started NCR. Like, I mean, because like it's intimidating running. We do written reviews, and we also do a couple podcasts, and we're like an information source for people, and we've been called out a couple times like for fact checking and stuff. So I'm really trying to like read up now. So I
Yeah.
read probably I think I read like 4 graphic novels a week along with all the other weekly releases. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So
Yeah. Or trade
you
paperbacks or
okay.
whatever you call it. Yeah.
Yeah, you Instagrammed or Facebooked or whatever like that huge stack of comics.
Yep, that's this week's reading I gotta do. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and then I need to loan you Lobster Johnson to read because I said I would.
yeah. Yeah, man, that the title of that is enough to kind of intrigue me. It just sounds really interesting.
Yeah, well, and in this first volume, it kind of has like a in between each issue, Mike Mignola kind of wrote like goofy backstory, like filler stuff, and like
Okay.
that kind of like built like that explains that the whole Lobster Johnson persona is more of like this myth than it really was a person, like or like the man is more of a myth anymore.
Yeah.
And so like he kind of explains like how the story has gotten like twisted and turned into things, and like the whole like the Johnson part of Lobster Johnson actually comes from like a luchador movie made in the like 80s, and they just added the word Johnson to like
Oh
accentuate
man.
the guy's package.
Oh wow.
Because it was
That's
just like
hilarious.
it's just like a goofy luchador noir movie that was made, which is like a real thing that actually happened. Like there's a luchador, I think in the 80s, and I don't remember his name, who was just like super popular, like in Mexico, and he started like making movies, and they were just like absurd movies, and so it's kind of like loosely based on that kind of like real history, which is kind of interesting. But
Huh.
and that's just like I guess diving into indie comics really in general. Like that's the interesting thing about indie comics is like especially like that one, it doesn't really stick to those tropes and those cliches of like a superhero having to have an alter or a secret identity. He's just that's just who he is, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that I like about indie comics is the fact that they either don't stick to those tropes at all, or they find a trope and they dive straight into it and kind of
Yeah,
embrace it for what it is, and like that's another part that's like really fun and cool, about comics is like you can take a trope and just like dive straight into it and like because comics are fun like that, and it doesn't if it I think if it were a novel without pictures it would be a lot harder to do that whole like tropey comic booky thing,
yeah, for
or
sure.
wouldn't be quite as enjoyable. So
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm gonna try to stay on topic here. And I think I gotta say that's one of the things I've enjoyed about NCR is that you are basically the MC. Um, is that yeah MC? Or at least you're kind of in charge. So
Eh.
you do a very good job though of like keeping the conversation on topic and making sure that each person kind of gets their say in and because I know that that was one of the reviews. I think it was yeah it was like a review on iTunes about how like people on the show aren't necessarily talking over each other and that it's a good quality conversation about a comic and as I guess the leader sort of in charge person like I feel like you're doing a good job, at least my experience of co-hosting, of making sure that the conversation is moving in the right direction um and isn't staying super conversational but like at least is feeling conversational and staying on topic, which is nice.
Yeah, it's difficult for sure when you get four comic book fans in a room
Yeah,
together and they're all discussing something that they're intensely passionate about. It's a lot easier on the indie comic podcast because
yeah,
but the DC sometimes they get a little riley and stuff and yeah we work on the crosstalk a lot I suppose and I don't know. I think it's a learned thing very much. Like our
yeah,
first couple episodes, we did talk over each other a lot, and we'd listen back to it and be like, "Man, we gotta we gotta cut that out a little bit." But sometimes it still happens. It's fun, but
yeah,
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 it's a very learned thing trying to allow everyone to have a turn to speak and stuff.
yeah. So yeah, you got into comics about 3 years ago, and I mean, it seems like you've really dove in, I guess. And I know like the first time I heard about you, I didn't meet you initially, was you started the Des Moines Facebook group, the Comic Creators Coalition, which kind of fizzled, maybe. I don't know. It's not really. It's still there.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. I still get some notifications about it. The DMCCC. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it was an exciting group, I think, at least to get to kind of see, the people kind of banding together in Des Moines. Because I think that's the one thing about Des Moines that maybe my eyes aren't open to it yet, but just that the indie scene here or the local comic book scene isn't as collaborative, maybe. Like it seems like there's a lot of people here, but it doesn't ever seem like there's a lot going on. And it was interesting, I guess, that you were trying to kind of corral it a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. Like to me it seems like as nerds per se, or I don't want to say nerds and offend anyone, but that's
No.
that's what we are, I think we tend to kind of go in our own little bubble and really enjoy all the media that we have or whatever. But you forget that there's other people out there that are into that sort of thing. And with the DMCCC, I was making comics at the time and
Okay.
I was really trying to bring people together as a community and be the strength in numbers, we can really do awesome things together. And
Yeah.
I kind of got out of making comics just because, not for lack of trying, but just because I wasn't good at it, or as good at it as others, as I'd like to be. Or I'm
Right.
kind of
Right.
a perfectionist. I don't want to do something if it's not gonna be good. But
Yeah.
with the podcast, it was we all really enjoy talking about comic books and reading comic books and let's build a community out of this and we don't want to stop with just the two show, we want to grow to 20 people and 30 people and I think the more people are involved the more awesome stuff can be done.
I think that kind of is. Sorry, that's leading into a good question. Then is like, what is the intent of NCR? So you don't want to just stop at these two shows. Like, do you know how far you're wanting to go with it, or is that just
That's
something
it.
that's up in the air still?
I'm gonna take over the White House, man. That's what we no,
That's
I'm just
weird. I
kidding.
don't know if
Yeah.
a podcast
Yeah.
can do that about comics specifically.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Meh.
More and more these days, it seems like anything's possible. All right. Anyway, sorry.
We don't have to get into politics
No, we don't. I'm sorry.
unless there's a comic
No,
about it.
No, yeah, true. Which there was actually. They did like a Catwoman election night special
Oh yeah, you
that
talked
was
about it.
really fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like Penguin was acting like Trump, and then they had
Mm.
another character acting like Hillary. It was a lot of fun. But getting back to your question,
Yeah.
like where do we want to go? Um, I don't know, man. Like it seems like to me I struggle finding revenues to find only news about comic books. You know, there's so many TV shows and movies now, and like a
Hmm.
website called comicbook.com only posts things about TV shows and movies,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, it would be cool if there was, which is fine. Like they're a great site, and I go to them for news. But
Yeah.
like it would be really nice if there was a place like that that only posted comic book related things, and they covered all the comic books from like Dark Horse to Marvel and DC and everything in between, and all the independently published stuff. And so I guess I don't know, I'd really like it to be like a news outlet where we are covering written reviews on everything, where we're doing podcasts on everything, where we're putting video content out there on everything,
Yeah.
and maybe have some like actual talk shows with cameras involved and stuff.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, the more people we get involved, the more is possible, because I know like you've helped me with some things because you're a developer,
Yeah.
and you've helped me with certain things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I not met you. Andrew Southern is the co-host of the Indie Comic Ninja podcast. He helps us with things that like,
This is
or,
the Indie
I'm
Comic
sorry.
Ninja.
Wow, sorry, so many podcasts.
Yeah.
Andrew Southern is the co-host of the Indie Tuesdays podcast, one
Right.
of them, and he does better graphic design work than I do, and he's also an awesome illustrator. I'm sure he's going to help us with stuff down the line.
Yeah.
Travis Roseberry helps host or he's the co-host of DC Mass, and he builds things, so he's going to be building us like a backdrop that we'll eventually use for video. So that's kind of like,
Nice.
the more people we get involved in it, the more we can sort of grow in ways that I never thought that we could grow.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
this guy can do this, so hey, let's some stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. You just cut out. I think
Oh, that's okay.
we got the gist of what you're saying. But yeah, that's awesome. I think especially going back to your comment about not making comics anymore because you weren't awesome at it. It's nice though that you're wise enough, I guess, to at least, look around and find people who are good at those things to be able to do it rather than just trying to go it yourself. And I think and I know that's I guess a good rule of thumb for life, but especially a good rule of thumb for comics. Just because, look at these just fantastic teams that are making comics like Scott Snyder and the guy who drew Batman.
Yeah, Greg Capullo.
Thank you, Greg Capullo. Like, just,
Yeah.
I mean, a team like that, like, just who almost redefined like a comic book team. It seems like just doing such a fantastic job with Batman, and just whenever I listen to any sort of interview with any comic book creator, they're always talking about like the team that was put together to make that comic. And I mean, it's always cool when somebody can, do everything, and it's fun to hate that person, but um it just seems like there's always, like some of the better comics always seem to be like a really strong good team, and it's cool that you're throwing together the Super Friends or something.
Yeah,
So
we tried to call the DC show the Super Friends, and Travis was not having it. He did not want to do that at all. So we went DC Mass instead.
yeah, that's why I
I
brought that up.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Maybe we talked about that on air.
You loosely talked about it, I think, at least in one of the episodes I heard. But yeah,
I don't know, man. That's the thing, is I talk so much now, I forget half of what I say, because it's like I'm always
who you
always
say
talking.
it to. Yeah, no, I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So, no, but yeah, it's great to like, strengthen numbers, man. Like, and the thing about it is like, yes, we're consuming media, which is normally something that's viewed as like maybe an unhealthy thing, but we're reading literature, albeit,
Yeah,
maybe kind of juvenile literature, but we are reading and we're discussing it, and like, we're doing something constructive. It's totally, just, I mean, and contributing to this wonderful community in our own way,
yeah,
So,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
and it's funny to say too that like comics and is a childish thing maybe, but like especially getting as deep, diving as deep as NCR does into the comics themselves, like you and we, I guess, are really kind of almost digging into like the science of a story, and kind of like tearing apart how the story is written and really analyzing bit by bit. Almost, I mean, kind of, it reminds me a lot of in high school, like in the novels classes that we had to take, where you're kind of analyzing Shakespeare. I mean, it's not Shakespeare, I guess, but it's, in my opinion, just as good. Um,
Yeah, yeah, very, very much so. I mean, it's a book club, is what it is, essentially. I
yeah,
mean, that's, as
we're
much.
just
I mean,
recording a book club.
yeah, that's exactly what it is, and it's awesome, man. Like, yeah, we're talking about narratives and using literary terms, and I mean, yeah, that's what it is. It's a lot more productive than just like watching a TV show for, binge watching your Netflix show or whatever,
Yeah,
but
and it's interesting to me, like just the types of things that come out, and especially having a team, like we were saying, because like the episode for Indie Tuesday that was today, which will be last week for when this podcast comes out. Andrew brought up the whole like purple is a color used for uncertainty,
hmm
and just like really finding out like goofy details about illustration that I never would have known, and
yeah,
which is
yeah,
funny.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. But I mean, it's funny to me that they do stuff like that when like the general public doesn't know about it. I mean, it's probably like it's like an internal thing that like is affecting me somehow, but I'm just not registering it as well as Andrew was, since he learned it at some point. I mean, being an illustrator, I hope he knows that kind of stuff, I guess. But yeah, it's just cool.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And actually, since he mentioned that, I've noticed it in comic books, like the new Batman design, like the inner, like part of his cape is purple, actually. So
Oh yeah.
I was wondering because obviously Batman certainly has a certain amount of mystery that goes along with that character, So it's like you gotta wonder if that was
Hmm.
intentional or not.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, I guess in between, 3 years ago getting comics and starting a podcast, I mean, were there any? So you said you tried writing comics, I guess. I mean, but really, I mean, were there any other misadventures in comics that you had over the last few years?
I don't know. I think like going to comic book conventions was a really big thing because like you go and I heard you talk about this on one of your episodes was like when you started this was like
Mm-hmm.
you go to the comic book convention and you realize like this is a community of like really awesome people that exists and like they're all really great and they're all doing things in their own sort of way and they've all sort of found their way to contribute to this community
Yeah.
um in different ways. I mean, yes, there's comic book creators, there's also people who make props, there's also cosplayers, there's also, you know, people who create content like us, and it's like finding
Mm-hmm.
your place. I think I always sort of like when I was making when I was making comics, I never gave a second thought to the people who were creating content or writing articles or anything. I just got my information from them or whatever. And like
Yeah.
as I got involved with it though, like I slowly realized that like these people are contributing in a huge way and they're amazingly talented people, the people that can like, write these beautiful articles or make these really wonderful shows or speak publicly really well. Because when I started this podcast, I was terrified of public speaking. I still am actually, but like I get
Yeah.
through it. But like this has helped me a lot. So I guess like from my first Comic Con in Kansas City, Planet Comic Con, I
Mm.
wanted to I wanted to find some way to like belong to this community of people and contribute to it. So, yeah, I tried making the comic, and that was tough. We're still actually working on that though. I'm finding that I'm a much better writer than I am an artist, and
Mm.
so and Andrew Southern actually, is we're talking about throwing around an idea right now. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, creating content for people, like giving information to people and finding ways to get interesting ways to give information to people is a passion of mine. I
Mm-hmm.
think communication is huge too. So like just like going and talking to people at comic conventions is a lot of fun. You meet the weirdest people there, man. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, I swear to God, like we at the last one at Midwest Comic Con, I met someone who was like the living embodiment of Dwight from The Office. And dude, straight up, man, like he would just like he would talk to you, and I felt like he was about to say like, what is it, like Beats
Beats
Bears
Battlestar
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, man,
I did
I
not
love
meet that guy. That's unfortunate.
yeah, he's a really really big dude that had a sword, and I was dressed like Negan, and he
Yeah.
was dressed like someone, I don't know, but someone wanted to take our picture together,
Okay.
and I got kind of looped into like a 20-minute conversation with this guy, and like but it was really fun and
Yeah.
interesting, and it's just cool, man. Like you meet a lot of cool people, so
Yeah, I
yeah.
think I got looped into a 20-minute conversation with a guy who was a spot on 10th Doctor Who.
Oh,
Like
nice.
spot on. Like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that was a weird conversation too. But I mean, that's kind of that is the highlight of Comic Cons, is just really, I mean, half of it's meeting the fans that are just walking around and stuff like that. And then the other half is just like getting to meet the people behind the tables. It's really cool.
Well, yeah, and you also get to go and like, these comic book writers and artists that you see on covers of comic books that you think they're like rock stars or something. Like
Yeah.
I thought they were rock stars, and they never talk to me, and like, you know, you bring them a stack of your books to sign, and they're like the coolest freaking people you've ever met, and they
Yeah.
talk to you, they talk to you about their process and stuff, and like, what they're working on, and like if they can, and like, I mean,
Yeah.
they're super nice. Like, what was Eric
Gapster,
Gapster, I
yeah.
believe.
He's the
Yeah,
inker
and
for Phil Hester, yeah.
then Phil Hester, like those two dudes were like some of the nicest artists I've ever met, man. And like
Yeah.
they did an interview with me for an article, no problem. Super
Nice.
nice dudes. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like, I mean, that was my first time actually ever interviewing anyone too. So it was like I think I was a little awkward about it, but like,
Did
yeah, I mean,
did you release that as like a written thing?
I did. Yeah, I
Okay.
recorded. I wanted to like record something for the podcast. Turns out it's kind of hard to do like portable recording unless you have some type of device to do that with. So
Yeah.
I just used my phone, and then I went back home and typed out, like, just listened to it and typed out all the words to it or whatever,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
was tedious for sure, but
Hmm.
it was fun. Yeah. So, and it was nice to call out a lot of the artists. Actually, we got one of our hosts. Well, we got two of our hosts from that. Really, I mean, I
Cool.
met you through Tom Hotka,
Yep.
and then I met, well, I knew Andrew Southern, but that was the first time we had ever met in person, really, at that show.
Yeah, it's funny too because like I wasn't at my table when you stopped, and so I didn't even get to meet you there, which was funny.
Yeah,
And so yeah, Tom, who I was sharing the table with, he just handed me this card. He's like, "This guy stopped by." He must not have recognized you, dressed up as Negan, I guess, but because he didn't remember.
oh no, he knew. Yeah, he
Oh,
knew me. Yeah, we talked about DMCCC a little bit.
oh, that's
Yeah.
funny because maybe he said your name and I just didn't recognize it at the time. I don't know, but like because I was just like, oh, some guy left me a card and wants to talk to me about podcasts. Like, what does this even mean?
Well, I was thrilled that, like, there's another comic book podcast in Des Moines, because it's
Yeah,
like
I had
I
no
didn't
idea.
right, like I was like, yeah, there's someone here who's doing what we're doing. It's like, it's another chance to grow too. Like
Hmm.
maybe someday if we want to expand, yeah, we can always expand in different ways. So
Yeah,
I'm sure that might happen sometime. So
yeah. Well, and I know for me, part of starting a podcast was it was just an excuse to talk about comics. And I only do it once a month because just for my personal time like this, that's just all I have really time for, especially with the editing process afterwards. But getting to like just go over to your house for like a couple hours once a week, like I have time for that, and so it's nice to get to like go over
yeah.
and talk about comic books and make some new friends, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's just, I guess, like we keep saying, the community there is just, it's a blast for me, even though it's only been 2 weeks, I guess, that I've been a part of it, but like it's thoroughly enjoyable. So now you can't kick me off.
No, we would never kick anyone off. That's the thing about it, is it's
Yeah.
just a lot of fun. Yeah. And there's not, the thing about it too was like when Brad and I started it, man, like we were like, all right, let's cover every DC Rebirth title between the two of us. So we were paying for all the comics, which
Wow.
sucked.
Yeah.
And then it was like each of us had like 6 or 7 comics to read and write reviews for that week. And it was like, crap, man, this is crappy. Like, this is not cool. So we brought Josh on, and that kind of leveled it out. And then we got 4 people, and it was like, yeah, this is a sweet spot right here. Like, we can just do 2 books each, no big deal, not a problem. So easy, like an
Yeah.
hour's worth of prep each week. And like for the Image one, that show's formatted just a little bit differently. So like, and I found out it's probably better to format that show a little differently, just because Image books are a little deeper. I think they've got a lot. It's like I can't sit and talk about a Superman book with someone for like 40 minutes. I think I could sit and talk about any given Image book for like 40 minutes, just because like there's a little more depth there. They're not quite as pulpy.
Yeah. Well, and we've been kind of backtracking a little bit and covering, because we're not hitting things at number 1 necessarily, and it's a lot harder to just jump in in the middle of a series too, because you need to know that backstory, whereas like everyone knows where Superman came from, kind of thing. But
yeah well, and Superman's a lot. Yeah, they're making it plenty confusing there too.
well,
So
then there's that.
yeah.
Yeah. But I guess, I mean, you had the chance, and it was just kind of good timing, I guess, for DC Mass, because that's what it's called, right? DC Mass.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's your podcast. Anyway, it was good timing, I guess, for you to start with the number 1s with Rebirth, I guess. Did you start like right when Rebirth started, or had you been doing it for a little while?
Yeah, so I guess it's worth mentioning. Yeah, we started right when we started right when Rebirth started.
Okay.
And like Brad and I were like, we had decided we want to start a podcast because we had been listening to podcasts and stuff. But like, so there was this one called DCR. It was Distressed Citizens Radio, and they were a fantastic podcast. Probably, yeah, they're really good, fun podcast. Super positive. They do what we do with the DC Mass one, where there was 2 guys that cover all the DC books. And the week before we started podcasting, they shut their podcast down, and they stopped it.
Wow.
And like they kind of left it open on their last episode to like, hey, if anyone wants to pick up the torch for this, there's a lot of listeners out there that want it. And we're like, well, I guess we'll do that. So like we just not to say like we copied anyone or whatever, because I think we're not very similar to them, and like we're just a different type thing, but we do kind of provide that same service, and like they got us excited about it. So yeah, that was kind of what led into NCR. So
nice.
Yeah. Great podcast too. If you ever want to like go back and listen to episodes, they have really good stuff. They're really, really cool guys. Super positive, which is one thing. That's another thing, is like, I think that like comic book fans have a tendency to be really, really negative sometimes. And like, we really wanted to separate ourselves from all that negativity and try and maybe, like, it's hard when you have a bad book like Justice League right now or something, but like, you try and stay positive and just laugh through it and stuff, and like that's what we do. So
yeah, which I suppose the rating system helps with that a little bit, just since it's a bit of a silly rating system.
It is,
and so like if something is bad, you're not outright saying like this is crap. You're just saying this is purgatory.
Yeah, or when we call something blasphemy, it can tend to get a little dicey. But like,
yeah, I don't know if I've heard anyone say anything was blasphemous yet.
Oh, we have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Travis gave Justice League a blasphemy last week, I think, or the week before last. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So.
Oh yeah, I think
it deserved it.
Yeah, I think he was saying he was gonna possibly even stop reading it. Somebody said that. I don't know. But you can't.
Yeah, I don't. That's the sad thing about Justice League, is like people will never stop reading it, even though it's god awful right now, and that like they really need to switch the artist and write. Well, not the art. I guess the artist is good. The writer though is just not doing a very good job, and
Yeah.
but people, it's a Justice League title, so people are never gonna stop buying it. Like
Yeah.
so. It's just one of those things, I suppose.
And
Not to go all negative about it.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the thing is that then can lead into, so the interesting thing about Nerd Church Radio is the whole, I guess, theme of church. And so your rating system is blasphemy, which is something basically that can never recover as it is, kind of thing, or it's just so bad that.
Yeah, it's just if it's bad. Like if it's a bad book, we say it's blasphemy.
It's just not even worth reading, I guess. I think it's kind of what you guys say.
Yeah, pretty much. We would not recommend buying it, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. And then purgatory. What is purgatory? Because that's kind of the next level up.
It's just like meh. Yeah, it was okay, I guess. Like, yeah, that's just meh. That's the word I would use to describe it.
Okay. And then the next level up is
blessing is if it's
blessing.
good.
Okay.
And then if it's great, it gets a holy, and if it's perfect, it gets a salvation. So if it's like reborn level, I gave reborn a salvation. I think that's worth.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it deserves it, or a high holy, I guess. I don't know. It's so funny because like ever since we started this whole rating system thing, like I rate things in my day-to-day life, and people look at me like I rated a burrito the other day when I was out with my wife. Like,
awesome.
She's, yeah, I'd give it a blessing. I guess it was all right. Like, yeah. She's like, you just rated a piece of food, Ben. You need to just chill. Like, but whatever.
Take a break. Yeah.
Yeah. You're podcasting too much, Ben.
Oh, never.
Never.
That's funny though. So what are, I guess, some stories that you have given blessings to? So Reborn, you don't have to stick with the indie books, but like, so Reborn you're saying is not a blessing, sorry.
Salvation,
yeah.
I don't give salvation out I'm not giving them out very much because like I think salvations and blasphemies should be like reserved, to like the really great and the really terrible ones. So we have a lot of blessings and holies. I mean, like, I don't know. I think like Green Lanterns right now in Rebirth is damn near or darn near close to. Sorry, I don't know if you're. Yeah.
No, I mark things explicit if I have to.
Okay, yeah, they're close to a salvation right now. It's just such a great story.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a character named Dexter, I mean, why not?
Right? Yeah. Yeah, he's actually not in it anymore, but yeah, he was. He was in the beginning. And then what else? Man, I want to say like anything with Superman in it right now is really great too. That's been a lot of fun.
Huh.
Yeah.
Except for Justice League.
Except, well, okay, any of Superman's main like Action Comics or Superman. I mean, those, I guess only those two, but yeah, those have been really good.
That's funny that he only has 2 comics out, and then there's like a million Batmans.
Well, there's like 2 Batmans, 2 Supermans. There's Batman Detective Comics and Batman. Then there's Superman and Action Comics, and then there's like Justice League and Trinity and all that stuff.
Isn't there the All-Star Batman?
Oh yeah, you're right. There is. Yeah, that's kind of like
that's a million Batman comics then.
Yeah, that is. That's yeah.
That's
I guess
3.
he does. Yeah, that's 3. Close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Close.
Well, I think I felt like with the New 52, and maybe it wasn't just Batman, but like, and it's kind of what again burned me out was like you had Batman, you had Batman and Robin, Batman Incorporated, and then you had Nightwing, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Batwing, Batwoman, Batgirl.
Yeah.
Just the whole Bat family. It's like half of DC, and I don't know. It's just a lot.
It's just too much to follow, man. And like a lot, the thing is like a lot of it's padding too. It's a lot of it's like not really worth reading, which is like, that's kind of where we come in is like, there's a lot of these stories right now that people don't really need to be reading and it doesn't matter. So yeah. Yeah.
My headset thing is twisting. It's annoying. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Just so you know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to rag on DC too much, I guess, but I mean, Marvel had that same problem up until they killed Wolverine. Because like it seemed like
Yeah.
every book had Wolverine in it for a long time. But sorry, we don't have to like complain about those. But
No, man. I
being
mean,
an
like
indie
DC.
podcast,
No, that's. I mean, like they do great work. Like
yeah,
I'm overall a fan of what they're doing, but I
yeah,
think
yeah,
like they're also a big company that like the money is the first like goal for them, you know,
mm-hmm.
and that shows in the product. Like there's a lot of books they release bi-weekly that like don't really
Mm-hmm.
need to be released bi-weekly, but they're gonna do it because it makes them more money. Whereas
Right,
Image, Image, all they have is like monthly titles, and like it's more driven by like good content rather than making a lot of money off of it, and they treat their artists better and stuff. It's
yeah.
just yeah.
Well, I mean,
So
that being said, too, it seems like it seems like almost every Image book sells really well. So, I mean, it seems like, I mean, they're obviously only publishing books that they know are going to sell well.
hmm
But that being said, they're all creator owned. And so, they're not forcing a plot line because, in that other series, this happened to so and so. So it needs to like be forced into this story somehow, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
and maybe that's it. I mean, it's definitely the creator owned thing. And I think that's what's definitely what kind of really got me interested in comics and is the indie comic ability to just stay maybe just true to the story and really ending when it needs to end kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because like with AD After Death
hmm
that we reviewed last week now for when this comes out, but that well, at least right now it just looks like it's going to be a trilogy. Like this is just the story that Scott
Yeah.
Snyder needed to tell kind of thing, and that's nice. And then like with Reborn, I'm looking at that and I'm kind of hoping that it's going to be like the next saga because it seems so good that like it'd be nice if it just keeps going for quite a
Yeah.
while.
Well, I think it will be.
And then
Yeah.
you have books like Saga that just seem to be going on forever. And by the title, I mean it sounds like it is going to go on forever kind of thing.
Yeah. So like Brian K. Vaughan knows how that story's gonna end. He
Mm-hmm.
knows like he knows what the last page is gonna look like. He's already said it, but
Well, and that's always a good thing too. Whereas with Batman and Superman, there is no ending. Like,
yeah, I mean it's like you know what you're getting, you know. I mean like I go to DC Comics for like my DC feel. Like I love Batman, I love Superman, I love
yeah,
Batgirl. I mean there's some of my favorite characters.
right,
At the same time, I couldn't sit there and watch Saturday morning cartoons all day, every day of my life. You know, like there's a point where I want something a little more adult, maybe a little more like content or
yeah,
not quite as like gimmicky or whatever. And like that's where indie comics come in, and
yeah, yeah,
they're not bound to like I think it's like it's definitely worth noting that one of the best comic books of all time, Watchmen,
yeah,
was written by one of the best comic book writers of all time, Alan Moore, and he made the mistake of publishing that story with DC Comics, and now they're throwing all those characters in that really should have stayed in their own universe,
yeah,
and they're taking all of them and throwing them in with like all the Batman and Superman and like the DC universe characters, which don't get me wrong, man, I'm totally stoked on that. Like I'm
yeah,
excited for it.
for sure.
Like but at the same time like that was such a different thing than like Batman and Super, like it was like
Yeah.
gritty, like I mean
Well,
very realistic.
and honestly, I'm equally as excited about it, I guess, especially listening to NCR and seeing how things are developing slowly at least, but excuse me, at least I think I'm really excited about some of those characters being in the DC universe, but I just feel like Dr. Manhattan just doesn't belong there.
See,
Like,
that's the only one I'm excited about.
yeah, oh, well, never mind then.
Because he's like, well, he's the only one that's like super powered, you know. Like the other ones are just kind of like your average Joe. Like they're not really.
Yeah, but so is
I guess.
Batman. I mean, Bruce Wayne's an average. I mean, well, he's not. He's rich, but
Well,
he's just a dude.
but he can hang with like Superman, you know. Like the
Yeah,
comedian man. Like he's not really that. Like he's kind of a jerk and like just not really that versatile, and like he's not really even that strong or good at anything. He's just kind of like, it was a character driven story. He was an interesting character, and like
right.
that was, but like, can I see him like hanging in a fight with like the Justice League?
Yeah,
Not
probably
really,
not.
not really.
Yeah,
No. but Batman I can, Dr. Manhattan I can, and like I
Right.
think that'll be interesting. But Alan Moore was pissed, man. Like he
yeah.
did,
So I heard.
yeah, he did not want anything to do with that. And like, but that's what sucks is like he wrote for Vertigo, and Vertigo belongs to DC. So unfortunately, that's just the way. Like, there's like too bad. These are
Yeah.
our characters, even though you made them up. I don't know if you made them up. I think like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you actually know Blue Beetle was supposed to be Night Owl in Watchmen?
Huh.
Yeah, that was supposed to be because like Night Owl's like ship, his round ship looks a lot like the Blue Beetle ship.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
like they actually switched those two characters out at the last minute.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
That would have been really weird.
Yeah, it really would have. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have fit with the story. I don't know how they were going to do that. It probably would have been different or whatever. But yeah, man, it's one of those things to where, like, if Alan Moore had written that under Image Comics, then that just would have stayed itself. It's kind of like making, like, if you were to say, like, I'm going to make a Back to the Future remake, I'm going to reboot that movie or I'm going to make a sequel. It's like, well, that movie was really great for the context of the time that it was in, and it had a finite ending, and it was just good. Just leave it alone, let it be good, and it's
right.
like DC and Marvel, they aren't as into that. And I don't mean to sit here and like bash DC or Marvel because I love them, but like it's the nature of the beast, I guess,
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, sorry, I know I went on a tangent there about that.
That's okay. I mean, that's really most of what this podcast is.
That's all
tangents
we do,
about
right?
comic books.
Yep. Yeah.
And movies, I guess. I mean, we're hitting about over an hour. I mean, is there any, I don't know, anything interesting? I mean, especially since you've been really inundated in comic books, anything interesting you want to talk about?
Oh man.
Or anything about NCR that you just want to bring up that we haven't brought up?
We're just I'm always plugging the written reviews. We're trying to get people to write reviews for us. So that's definitely, if anyone ever wants to write reviews on comic books for us, get in touch. If we'll help you get them a little bit early and stuff like that. So but other than that, I don't know. Yeah, we're always looking for people to join up and help build something awesome out of it. We are starting. So actually, Ramondo Burnside he's a co-host on the Indie Tuesday show, and he is a huge gamer. He's actually not as into comics as he is into video games.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say he's a huge gamer, like he plays video games as much as I read comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to be branching off and starting a gaming podcast under the NCR network. So eventually NCR is going to be a network of podcasts with different feeds, so you won't have any gaming podcasts on your comic feed or vice versa, know. But like that's kind of the next step is we're going to branch out into the gaming world and reporting on that. So yeah, so that's the next.
Do you know when that's coming out, or it's just in the works?
We're getting people together for it. I think we're thinking late December, early January.
Oh wow, that's fairly soon.
Yeah, so I think the content in that show is going to be formatted quite a bit differently. Like it's probably just going to be like probably 3 or 4 guys just talking about video games. Honestly, man, I'm letting him take it and run with it, like because I've just got too much on my plate right now. So
for sure,
I just told him like, hey man, if you want to start a show, you guys can come over here and do it, and I will run sound for it gladly. So,
okay. So
yeah,
you're still kind of editing it and running the background.
Yeah, I'm censoring them and stuff. No, not censoring.
You really need to get one of those soundboards, so you can have like a buzzer to like beep them out and stuff.
I'm working on it, man. I really, really want a soundboard. I gotta figure it out, like a MIDI keyboard.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be cool. Anyway.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, so where specifically can we go to help? I always like to say to help make you internet famous.
Oh, you can just type in Nerd Church Radio anywhere. We're on Facebook at Nerd Church Radio, Twitter at Nerd Church Radio. You can go to just www.nerdchurchradio.com. definitely give us a review in the iTunes store if you want to, and definitely give my boy Dexter a review on his podcast because
Yeah.
does great stuff. So
Thanks, man.
yeah.
All right. Well, any last words?
No, I'm good, man.
All right. Well, thanks a ton for the conversation. And I will see you on Saturday.
Yeah,
All
awesome.
right.